Carter. I'm chairperson of the Occoneechee-Savannah Indian Tribe of Virginia. I'm here to make sure that we don't get uranium mining in the state of Virginia.
Why do you personally think uranium mining is not good for the state of Virginia?
There are numerous reasons. Number one, uranium mining produces some of the most toxic substances known to man, to humans, to life on the planet, and it's so long lasting. It's something that, from a probability standpoint, I don't believe that we will be able to keep that from getting into the environment, not only affecting us today, but for hundreds, thousands of generations into the future. The consequences are just so devastating. Our population is fairly dense in this area, unlike out west, and the water level, the weather here isn't conducive to uranium mining.
My name is Erica Gray. I'm with Nuclear Free Virginia Richmond chapter, and I'm here at the General Assembly in Richmond, Virginia. And we're waiting for the meeting to start on Senate Bill 1138, the Nuclear Energy Consortium. And of course, this bill is very vague and a lot of wording there that we don't like, and really are going to try to make some points in there to get them to slow down, or I'd like to see them pull it. They've listed under here as the Department of Planning budget as no budget necessary, as if this was not going to cost any money, and it will cost the public tax dollars. So reporting, and we'll report back later.
Virginia has more nuclear assets than any other state in the country. This is a governor's bill. We're working with the governor on this with a large and broad variety of business and institution involvement in nuclear energy. We have worked to put together the Energy Authority as a political subdivision of Commonwealth for purposes of establishing a nuclear energy consortium, which is a non-profit, non-public entity. And so I think you actually pointed out some flaw in the original bill, which we've now amended this amendment to make a substitute to make sure that these two organizations operate independently. We've also had some issues regarding the open meeting rules and FOIA rules of the second layer, the consortium. And specifically, the reason we put this bill together was with the work that was done and the recommendation of so many participants: Department of Mines and Minerals and Energy, the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, Community College System, VCU, UVA, Virginia Tech, George Mason, 2 other higher ed institutes, 1 public, 1 private, 6 business entities, 1 nonprofit, and 1 federal research lab. 17 entities, plus many others, with lots of interest in this. This is a real opportunity, particularly at the consortium level, for people to begin to talk about approaches and things that may be of a important nature to the industry and to their companies, but not something that is necessarily should be publicly disclosed. As these conversations, some of which may be trade secrets and other things. So we in the industry felt it was best to leave those FOIA restrictions in place. I have Kathy France here, who's also an expert on this, and can speak to you about this issue if you have any questions.
Senator Waters, in talking with legislative services, that amendment that you pointed out to me is already out of this amendment that you substituted. Front page of the
I'm sorry, say that again?
The original bill, you came to me right prior to the meeting, and there was 1 line removed.
3 lines.
Yeah, on the front page. That is out of this.
Yes, that is. Yes, sir.
All right, are there any questions of Senator Waters on the part of the committee? Are there those that would speak in favor of?
On the AG's office to address the concerns that you raised last week, Mr. Chairman. I think the range is order on his behalf.
The others? Those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'll be very brief. Steve Hayner with Liberty Shipbuilding, one of our vice presidents, who's sort of our chief nuclear officer, so very confident. We look forward to being a part of it. We hope you will approve it.
We're continuing strongly support the Marion Ratcliffe on behalf of the Alcock and Roll Concert and 600 plus employees in Lynchburg and support this event.
Bill Excel on behalf of groups that have been concerned with, interested in the uranium. That's something that will be covered under this measure, and so we need more information.
On behalf of the Virginia Press Association. And Mr. Chairman, I was here last week when we expressed our concerns about the application for or the lack thereof to not the authority, but the consortium part of this bill. Before I go further, I want to thank Senator Waters' office, as well as Ms. France, for working with us to try and alleviate these concerns. Unfortunately, even with these amendments, we're in the exact same spot today that we were last week, which is we have a public body that will, under the terms of this bill, operate entirely outside the court. Those instances are rare and reserved for obvious instances such as grand juries. We don't see a reason to extend that courtesy to the consortium. Let me start, Mr. Chairman, by addressing the amendments, which I understand were geared towards making the consortium not a public body, and therefore there would be no reason in the first instance to worry about the application of FOIA. Respectfully, we have to disagree with that. It remains a public body, which is defined under FOIA, Mr. Chairman, in part as, quote, any other entity, however designated, of the public body, created to perform delegated functions of the public body or to advise the public body. If you look at the bill, the consortium is the entity created by the authority. That's in line 120. The board shall provide the formation of the consortium. In addition, even with the amendments, the consortium under the bill will perform delegated tasks of the authority, including raising money on behalf of the authority. That's in line 128 through 129. Expending funds of the authority, that is spending the authority's money, and that's in line 145. As well as accepting monies from federal or private sources on behalf of the authority. That's in 145 and 146. So it is performing delegated functions. It is also advising the authority. That is the consortium is advising the authority. That's in line 163 through 164, where notice of course the consortium requires the consortium to report at least twice a year to the authority. So we still have a public body. The question then is, do the circumstances warrant complete exemption from FOIA? In my understanding, our understanding, is that there are two concerns about having FOIA apply. The first relates to proprietary and confidential information. As I pointed out last week, Mr. Chairman, FOIA already has an exception for confidential proprietary records. That's in section 2.2-37056.3 that excludes from FOIA confidential proprietary records voluntarily provided by a private business pursuant to a promise of confidentiality from a public body. It goes on from there. We have proposed that if that is a concern, that language simply be added, and I'm speaking here in section G, which begins in line 154, and the reference to chapter 37, which is FOIA, would be to strike that, and then at the end of that section, if we need to alleviate concerns, just add language to the effect of, to the extent the requirements apply, the exclusion contained in 2.2-37056.3 applies to the records of the consortium. So there's no question that the records, to the extent they constitute confidential proprietary information, will be covered by that. The other issues, as Mr. Chairman, you alluded to, are concerns about the public meeting requirement. And effectively, and I'm not trying to be flippant here, but essentially the proponents of this bill are concerned about the inconvenience of having to hold public meetings and having to give public notice and things that go on with that. Unfortunately, it's our view that that's the cost of doing the public business. There isn't as a member of the Press Association, I'm not aware of a single public body that wouldn't love to avoid the requirements of the public meeting, public notice and the like if they could.
Mr. Chairman. Senator Zexton.
I would submit to you that the Senate Democratic and Republican caucuses do it all the time, every day. Our caucuses aren't open to the public. We discuss a lot of stuff. And a lot of good stuff.
Senator Saxwell, there certainly are, FOIA contains a list of otherwise public bodies that are excluded from FOIA requirements, which is fundamentally different from what's happening here, which is not an exclusion within FOIA, but it's simply not, FOIA is not going to apply. As to your comment about the group, I'm not particularly familiar with it. I'm not sure if it would constitute a public body if it's a private entity created by a political party. I just don't know. And so I can't speak to it. What I can say is this Commonwealth has a long-standing tradition of acting under the presumption that a public body is subject to FOIA, and then if necessary, on a case-by-case basis, carving out exceptions for records or public meetings. In fact, in addition to the proposed amendment that I just mentioned, Mr. Chairman, we also propose on the public meeting side of it, there is a section of FOIA that lists, I think it's up to 45 now, exceptions to the public meeting requirement. In essence, it allows certain public bodies to go into executive session, a closed meeting, more easily than otherwise would be. We propose the same 46 exceptions be included in FOIA that apply to the meetings of the consortium when they're discussing proprietary and confidential information. So,
Did you sit down with the folks that were working on this bill and go through all these suggested amendments?
Mr. Chairman, we were working with Mrs. Franks, and late last week, Thursday or Friday, it became clear that we had a fundamental disagreement about whether or not, even with these amendments, the consortium would be a public body. We had proposed to Ms. Franks what our amendments would be. They were rejected. After that point, I contacted Senator McWater's office, was able to catch up with them today. Certainly, I wish we had been able to get to them early on. The hope was, since we've been working with Ms. Franks all along, that we'd be able to work it out without having to take too much of Senator McWater's time. I'm sure you want to speak to it and see that. But at the end of the day, Senator Watkins and Mr. Chairman, members today, this is really an issue not so much about a nuclear consortium, but about how we want public bodies to be treated for purposes of open government. And I know there's been a reference to the FOIA Council. I just want to be absolutely clear to this committee, this bill has not been through the FOIA Council. There have been individuals on the FOIA Council who have been spoken with. To our knowledge, it was not fully vetted by the council. And I think that's important to consider the significant change in precedent that this bill represents. Thank you very much.
There will be other questions.
Mr. Chairman, I want to echo those concerns with respect to the application of the meetings law. It's critically important that the public have an opportunity to be aware of what's going on. I know when you approved the authority for offshore wind, those meetings are public. We participate in them all the time, and I think it would apply here as well. Just to reinforce that point, I just guess if you look at this and you look at the authority that's granting here, and some of the problems you've had with organizations like the Public-Private Transportation Act, and consider that this authority is being granted power to acquire, purchase, and hold property, otherwise dispose of property. It's also being given the power to encourage, facilitate, support the application, commercialization, and transfer of new technologies into nuclear power. I suspect that it may well be that some of our project might come to be proposed for your district, and you might be concerned about it, and you might find yourself concerned that this authority doesn't have to share information with the public, and could be very troublesome for you and your constituents in the future. So, again, it's critically important that we access to the public have access to this information. And again, I would suggest that you re-examine some of the authority that you're granting this entity. Thank you.
Elizabeth Gibbs.
Hello, yes, my name is Erica Gray. I'm from NICA. I'm concerned that there has not been enough opportunity for the public examination of this bill or consideration. I was here last week when I asked the question if public money would be used towards this consortium. I was told no. Obviously, on line 26 and 27, it states specifically matters of public necessity for which public money may be spent and private property acquired. Also on line 35, number 2, acquire, purchase, hold, use, lease. Obviously, public money will be used. I would like to ask why the Department of Planning and Budget has stated that there is no budget amendment. So obviously there is an issue of public money here. Many of the points are vague and need further refinement in order to be compliant with existing federal laws and could end up costing the Commonwealth in future legal challenges. I would think that really another year would be reasonable for its merits and failures to be discussed. Thank you.